Assalamualaikum and konnichiwa. Thank you for joining today's episode of Academy Speaking with me, Azalia. And today we're making a video about my preliminary thesis submission. Yes, okay. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited about this. So Alhamdulillah, yesterday I have successfully managed to submit my preliminary thesis. And although of course it is a really big milestone for myself, especially if you've been watching my videos since January, where I've been talking about how worried I was that I wouldn't be able to make the word count, make the page count. So it took 9 months, but Alhamdulillah we got there. We got to the sufficient amount of pages and even more than enough, so I'm really grateful for that. However, this is not I think it's important to remind myself also that this is not the final submission, like a final thesis submission. So I was only aware of this when I started googling, when some people were not familiar with what a preliminary submission was, or prelims. So before the final defense, especially in Japan, the system is that you will have to submit you will have a preliminary submission. So the preliminary submission is for a preliminary examination where you will have a defense, just the same, but it's at a preliminary stage, just to make sure that you got all the kinks worked out. You know, they want to see how ready you are and how confident you are, how well thought out the thesis is. So it's at a not introductory but preliminary. It's at a preliminary level. If the preliminary exam goes well, inshallah, pray for that, then you will be asked to make corrections. Of course, like, not having corrections is kind of weird, I guess, for a very long thesis. You'll of course expected to make corrections and resubmit it in the span of 2 months or so, to I think maximum October, November, December, around 2 months for a resubmission. And then you go for the final defense, the real deal. What's the word final? The final defense. So that's a big one. So this one is also a big thing because it was the first time that I really saw my paper in all its glory, in its shape, my baby in its shape. But yeah, there's still a lot to go through before this journey ends, and so I was just so happy to go through this first process myself, and I thought I'd share it with you. We took a lot of videos. Kohin followed me and accompanied me on my big day, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video of the process of creating and submitting my preliminary thesis. So unlike other places, in my head Malaysia, where you can just send your thesis to be photostated and bind it, here we have to do the binding ourselves. So prior to submission, I ordered these hardcover Doji Komeru covers, which is commonly used when you want to, for theses when sent in Japan. The next step is to make the spine of the dissertation, because we are required to write our names and the titles and the year. So this is basically me making the spines for each of the covers. To make sure that the spine fits perfectly and is the correct width, I used a draft copy of my dissertation to put it in to see, and as you can see, it fits just nice. And now we just gotta make 6 copies. We are also required to submit a summary of our dissertation, and each copy of the summary needs to be signed, or in Japanese terms, must have your inkang on it. So now that we have successfully put our signature on all the 6 copies of the summary, it's time to print. It's submission day and also printing day. We are required to submit 6 copies of our dissertation. So it's a long process, but we got it covered. After a copy has been successfully printed, I will do the first run through to check for any missing pages or anything else. Next, it will move on to Kohin's part of the job, which is to punch the holes and also to do a second run through of checks to make sure no missing pages and no white papers. After a copy has been punched, after it's been punched with holes, it will return back to me where I will bind them using the Dojikomeru hardcovers that we have prepared earlier. And there you have our very first successful copy. And we continue our little factory here to continue making the other 5 copies of my dissertation. At the same time, I also printed copies of my papers that have been published in journals because we are also required to submit this along with our dissertation. So I had 3 publications this year, alhamdulillah. So here's sorting them out and putting them into 6 individual categories. Now with the final copy all done, it's time to head to the office to submit.
さん、今日はどうしましたか？ハンター論文？Thesis？わあ、そうですね。OK、行きましょう。
So that was it. That was the process of submission. Like all journeys in all different countries and universities, the process is always different. Like I've seen my other colleagues in Malaysia where, and it was something I also did during my masters. It was something more easier where you could always send it off to a photostat shop and they would just do all the printing and binding for you. But here it's a bit more old-fashioned, I guess. I did try looking up for those kind of shops, but they were quite hard to come by, especially in my area. So I was like, oh, okay. So, but it wasn't that difficult. We managed to finish it, like I said, in like 2 hours. So everything's an experience, I guess. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and let me know in the comments if you guys have any thoughts. I don't know, sharing is caring. Yeah, alright. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Assalamualaikum.